So, Judd, we made a decision on the show here, got to be like a week ago now. I'm trying to think, when did they, I don't know, it was sometime in the last week. We put our heads together behind the scenes and said, man, the Twins just completely crapped the bed for a 2-week stretch against the White Sox, Yankees, and Guardians. Their season's pretty much over. We tend to program what we do here on Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily around what the audience wants from us. And so last year, the audience wanted a lot of wild discussion. People loved Kirill Kaprizov, and so you guys beefed up Judd's hockey show. We saw Wolves' interest bubbling, and so we said, over the last year, let's talk more Timberwolves. We'll add a Flagrant Howls podcast, sort of spinoff with Kyle Teige and myself, and do this. Mm-hmm. We used to have a daily Twins show back in 2019, the first year of Score North, called the Score North Twins Show, and it was like a full cast. It was you, it was our guy Rami, Derek Wetmore, me, and Glenn Perkins and stuff, and that was sort of peak Twins interest. But the last 3 years, the interest has waned. Even when the Twins are going through good stretches, we'll force Twins discussion, but it's just very clear the audience, by and large, responds a lot less to Twins discussion than some of the other stuff we talk about. Yes. So we made a decision once they were buried a week ago. He said, you know what? Let's just kind of shut her down. The Twins made their own bed. People want to look ahead to the fun winter sports teams, the Vikings, maybe the Gopher football team, whatever. We'll just shut her down. And over the last week, I would say 30 to 40% of text messages sent from Judd are just him hate watching this Twins team still. Yeah. Yes. Where Declan and I have kind of moved on. Like, I'm studying for the NBA season. We're watching AEW at Arthur Ashe Stadium last night.
Great
and Judd just, this stupid team. And so you've wanted at least some sort of burial, autopsy type segment surrounding this Twins team. And so I think we're going to give you this floor here now.
Okay.
To do whatever you want to do here, to get it out of your system. Okay. Go. The floor is yours here. I think this might be one last time until something newsworthy happens.
Right. Well, and first of all, I am not here to bury the Twins as far as talk about their faults and maybe they can tweak this and blah, blah, blah. I'm here to torch them. I want to burn down Target Field. And I'll start by saying this now. I am done. I am done. You need to fire Rocco Baldelli. I am through with this whole thing.
Wow.
And here's why. And this is not I'm going to pose some questions about what went wrong with the Twins and not answer said questions. And you're going to applaud me because I have the guts to pose the questions. I am calling for his job. I'm calling for his job, and it's very simple. And I will. And it has nothing to do with what people are ticked about, which is the analytics, and they meet at 2:00, and Rocco or Rocco's pulling the pitchers, Rocco's doing this, Rocco's doing that. Good old Rocco is doing what he's told, but he does have a job to do, and that is to have a baseball team that can run the bases, that can play infield defense, that has a little bit of discipline, that even when things go bad, doesn't quit. Which the Twins now have quit. I don't care, and you don't tell me, well, they got guys hurt. I know they got guys hurt, but the guys replacing them are actively quitting on the season as well. I don't even know I blame them, but I blame the manager. Rocco Baldelli, everything he's supposed to do, way outside of going and taking a pitcher out at 75 pitches, which might be his decision, it might not be. I don't even know or care anymore. Needs to be fired because he is overseeing a stupid baseball team that is undisciplined. I mean, when your great feat is going and getting Celestino, and taking him out of the game, when that's your greatest feat, give me a break. This goes back to, and Phil, you said this with Royce, and you're exactly right. This is the type of crap that needed to happen with Rosario years ago. Rocco has set up a culture of no accountability, and I can get away with anything I want. And then he takes it out on a guy who deserved it, but is the fill-in for Buxton. Like, it'd be different if it had been Rosario or if it was Buxton. I mean, hell, even Miguel Sano, basically, until he was sent down by the front office, got away with murder at times. There were times he should have been lifted from games, and Rocco didn't do it. And that's on him. I'm done with him. I think he's lost this team completely, and he's lost me. and he might be the greatest guy on the face of the earth, and he might be a really good bench coach. And there was a time when Nelson Cruz ran this team that Rocco appeared to be masquerading as a real manager. But that's gone now. And look, do I want Falvey's job? I'd like to talk about that, and I might, but I'm just talking from a fundamental standpoint of not being able to control your team and then caring far too late. I mean, Phil, you covered baseball. So much baseball is won between the margins. It's the small things. Like, you don't even appreciate good base running until you see bad base running and no discipline, right? Think about all of those things. And you know what? Here's the thing, too. So Celestino screwed up on the Arise fly ball in Kansas City 2 nights ago. He needs to tag. But I have a question that no one's asked. What was Wave 'em Home Tommy Watkins doing? He coaches third base. He coaches third base, and that's on Rocco, too. Dude, you got to have control. I mean, Tommy Watkins arguably should have been taken out of the third base coach's role 2 months ago. He can't do it. He's not good. Where is any discipline with this damn team? So I'm not asking questions. Well, what's all wrong with the Twins? Nah, screw that. I'm done with that. I'm calling for people who don't deserve their jobs to be fired, and Rocco Baldelli doing what he's supposed to do or not doing it, to me, deserves to be fired.
Wow, that was there it is. Judd went there with the firing. So let's unpack this for a second here, because I will zoom out a little bit and say that I think it's really hard to justify the last 2 seasons, the disappointing results. You're going to finish below 500 2 years in a row, unless you go on a crazy run here. You're going to finish below 500 in 2 seasons in which you went in planning to win the division, which, I mean, the gap there is massive. And the Twins are going to come back and say, well, injuries. That's been and they have been besieged by injuries in many different ways. But what percentage of their failure is injuries versus bad decision making and bad leadership? And we've kind of parsed a lot of that stuff apart the last few weeks on the show. There's definitely a slice of injuries, but there's a huge slice of bad decision making, bad personnel moves, just general underachievement and incompetence. And so then you have to parse apart of the portion of the blame that is incompetence, bad leadership, the stuff that you can control. How much of that is Rocco's fault? How much should he be the scapegoat for what has happened the last couple of years? I think if you're the owners of this franchise and you want to show that you care about winning, that you actually plan to win a World Series at some point, you can't come out again like Jim Pohlad said 1 year ago and say, I still believe that this is an A+ front office, for instance. Dude, what are you watching, okay? A+? So I don't know when Jim Pohlad's, when someone in the media is going to track him down again, but I don't want to hear A+ again. So to me, a manager's main job is to, and I've told you guys this for years, like covering baseball, just being connected to a lot of Major League Baseball players throughout the years. A manager's main job is sort of ambiguous. It's not like a football team where you are going to coach up a group of 53 guys through scheme and discipline and etc. Or in basketball, you're going to diagram plays and whatnot, right? Like in baseball, you're not drawing up plays for an at-bat. Like you're drawing up some plays, but it's mostly like shifts and different things. Yep. To me, a manager's job is to just sort of vaguely and generally create an environment where every player can reach their full potential. Whether it's through bullpen and pitching staff management or dissemination of scouting information so that the players can understand how to be the peak version of themselves, or just helping to create a great chemistry and togetherness. Terry Francona, it's really hard to quantify exactly what he does like in the weeds on a day-to-day basis unless you're behind the scenes. But if you go back and look at Terry Francona's teams in Boston and Cleveland, and some have been more talented than others, those teams have an amazing sense of chemistry and togetherness. Those teams are amazing at disseminating scouting information to players so that they come up and they're just like ready to rock and roll from the minor leagues or whatever it is. These Twins teams, look at this year alone. Worst base running team in baseball.
Yep.
Statistically. Fangraphs has, outs or runs created on the base paths above and below average. And the Twins, with that metric, are atrocious on the base paths. The Twins pitching staff, the starters, facing a lineup the third time through the order, worst in baseball. It's like an 870 OPS against. Yep. So you look at that, okay, is that front office putting pitchers in a position, like pitchers that are incapable of facing a lineup the third time through?
Right.
Or is it a manager and field staff not working with those pitchers to guide them through a third time through the order, or a combination of both? And then this is more of a random thing, but the clutch hitting on this team, 2 outs, runners in scoring position, among the 3 or 4 worst in baseball. That might just be small sample size, noise, whatever. But I could probably make a case that the front office stuff is making Rocco look a lot worse than Rocco really is. So I like John Daniels is sitting out there. John Daniels is one of the most highly regarded best general managers or presidents in the league. I would talk to him and say, hey, man, you want to run this whole thing? If you want to keep these guys around, you can't. Like, I would look at that before I would look at Rocco specifically. But I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. There's a lot of things on the field level that just don't look and smell right. But I think a lot of it's coming from the top more than it's coming from the bottom. So,
well, and I would love to go after the top. I'm just saying I think Rocco is, for what Rocco's supposed to do, and again, this goes well beyond taking a pitcher out. This is, you have a team. Why is your team so stupid? Why do they, within the confines of a game, why can they not run the bases? Those are the questions. And look, I mean, this thing since 2019, Phil, has lacked discipline. It's just that in 19, it was, oh, Rosario, ain't that funny? You know, he watched that ball and got thrown out at second. That's our Eddie.
That's just Eddie being Eddie.
Yeah, that's no. You know what that does?
Let guys be themselves.
Exactly. You know what that does? All of that, it sends a message down the line that there's not going to be any accountability. And I'm not saying Rocco or anyone else needs to be fire and brimstone in this era of pro sports. But I am saying, when you are now saying, well, I took Celestino out and it's a great learning, you know what, Rocco? It's too late. And when Miguel Sano was able to get away with the crap, in my opinion, that he did, of his at-bats being awful, and again, there was no discipline. Literally, the best manager this team has had since 2019 was Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz is the guy that had the most. He basically demanded accountability and held guys in check. And we sort of knew that, but it appeared to be a genius stroke by Rocco. But when Nelson left, or before that, it just started to get out of control. And that's why I'm just saying, I don't think this team is going to fire Falvey. I really don't. I also think they're not going to fire Rocco. But I do think it's a lot better chance that you could remove him, and I just don't see it. This thing is going backwards, but I have no problem with what you just said, which is if they went to John Daniels tomorrow and are like, okay, let's back channel this, Johnny, I got no problem with that. I'm just saying this whole thing's a mess, and I'm done with like asking fundamental questions of how can we get this back?
Yeah.
I don't know you can with what you're doing and with your people.
And the problem is like what's happening here is two forces. The first force is, in order to sort of save face, totally understandably, the organization is putting injuries out as the headline, right? The broadcast is talking about injuries for the duration of a 3-hour game when they're getting smoked by Cleveland again, right?
Yeah.
And it is true. Again, there have been injuries. A lot of teams deal with injuries. If you look at the Twins have had like 2,000 injury list days. It's third in baseball this year. But if you look at the top 10 that make up 75% of those days, it's a lot of guys that don't matter, like Randy Dobnak and Miguel Sano and a couple of like random relievers. Right. And it's a couple pitchers that you knew were injured and could plan for. Right. Like Royce Lewis is a loss. Trevor Larnach is a loss, but also has not done a lot. He's not the greatest defensive outfielder, et cetera. Yep. So you've got the idea that the organization itself is saying this is all bad luck and injuries. We're just going to come back and get him next year. But then you also have an ownership group led by Jim Pohlad that is one of the least curious and I would say starving to win ownership groups that you're going to find in professional sports. He is he is one of the biggest dud owners we have seen in the history of Minnesota sports. Not because he's cheap necessarily. I think he's actually greenlit a lot of big expenditures behind the scenes. I've heard they've added
their payrolls.
The Josh Donaldson, they've done some stuff payroll wise within the confines of Major League Baseball's. They don't have like a big revenue sharing structure like the NFL has. So it's funny, people rip me like, you're a Pollad pocket protector. No, I'm telling you that they're not going to spend with the top 5 teams in baseball, so be more creative and curious. And they aren't. And so Jim Pollad's not looking at this thing saying, boy, this is a wild disappointment. I know you guys have had some injuries, but let's look at the rest of it and peel back the label here for a second. He's not doing that. He'd rather just keep he hired a bunch of nice people. He wants to be friends with these people. It's a pain in the ass to have to fire people and then look for new people. He'd rather just say they're doing an A+ job and it was bad luck and let's try again. That's the vibe that comes from the top of ownership down through the organization. So I don't think, honestly, gun to the head, I don't think you're going to see any major. You might see a third base coach change, or maybe there's going to be a new pitching coach come in here. I don't think Falvey, Levine, or Rocco are in trouble this offseason.
I don't think their jobs are in trouble either, but I do think if they wanted to make a major change, it's not necessarily removing Rocco, which I'm not completely against, but and I'm not wearing a Twins Daily shirt underneath this or anything. I'm not trying to defend the Twins to tooth and nail, but I do think that the ownership has made much more mistakes and have put Rocco in a really bad look. And you're seeing a little bit of Rocco kind of breaking out of the puppet strings a little bit at times this year, where he's getting a lot more upset, and you can kind of tell that he's getting frustrated too with these results, and injuries and ineffectiveness and losing games will obviously do that. But this franchise hasn't won a playoff game in 18 years. And have they made some savvy moves here and there? Have they got a Joe Ryan for an aging Nelson Cruz? Have they found a Sonny Gray for a first-round pick? Yeah, those are solid moves. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing that we've been talking about with this Twins team, no matter it's Falvey or Terry Ryan or Bill Smith. They haven't been able to cultivate a winning culture in the playoffs, and the Twins fan base the Twins fan base deserves to see success. And if they are not seeing that success, you have to make major changes. I remember this quick story is I covered opening day in 2015. And I was walking down from the press box down to the Bulls, and there was an upper-level Twins person who said to himself and the other executives that, hey, you know what? I don't really care about the wins and losses as long as I know we tried hard. And I just remember being 23, 24 years old, being like, really? As long as we tried hard, and that kind of mentality is why people also rip the Twins and rip the ownership for not caring enough about winning.
Rocco said almost that exact thing as the Twins were getting swept away by Cleveland, right? He say those guys laid it all on the lines.
Which is BS, which is absolute BS. But the other thing, if the Twins were actually, if they cared and they were to do a real audit, a real one, so not just injuries and blah, 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 okay? I got an idea. Take the Cleveland games against you. You got done. Why? Partially, a big part, Terry Francona is a genius. Your guy had no counters. Your guy had no. So Phil, to the point
he's not allowed counters. I don't think he's allowed counters.
He's not allowed them too. But Cleveland, for instance, does what? They run a lot. They run the bases really well. Again, I go back to the little things because I agree. I'm not down on Rocco for the big decisions because he's not making those. I'm with you totally. But the things that he can control, he doesn't control well. And again, as I hate watch this team right now, they are actively golfing. They have decided we're going to go golfing, mentally, I should say. And those are the things that are very disturbing. But if they were to go after Falvey tomorrow, I wouldn't object one bit. My point is this isn't working. My point is this is not a blip. This is not bad luck. This division sucked. And you were in first place most of the year. Yeah. And now you're an afterthought. And Cleveland, which I believe had a payroll starting the season about half of what you did. So where Cleveland did not, they've got talent, but it's young. Cleveland has milked their talent for everything they're worth. And against you, they kicked your ass. Why? And the last thing too, if you're gonna do if you're gonna look into what happened, I'd be curious if Jim Polad knows why Wes Johnson left. Because to go recruiting in June for LSU is the biggest pile of dung excuse I've ever heard.
It is weird. I mean, he's getting a lot more money, so it makes sense. But why wouldn't you wait 3 months? Could you double dip a little bit? Hey guys, I'm gonna do this. I really want to see the season out.
Right.
I'm gonna be on some Zoom calls, not during my work hours, like early in the morning. I get why he left. The timing of it is weird.
Correct.
It's definitely weird.
And you were in first place. And
these college
college
jobs give you so much more autonomy as a pitching coach than you would get under this front office as a major league pitching coach.
Yep.
So, all right, are you good?
Well, I didn't even talk about rallies, but I'm done there. Yes, I'm good. All I'm saying is this. Coming up next, Rocco Baldelli's done a great job, and Rocco at home is a great guy. We go to the Baldelli's house and look at a happy family. Oh my God! See, if you play it, I'm screwed. Coming up next, Carlos Correa's had a great year. We're going to torture his September stats into why he's going to walk away from this team. Yeah, I'm done, but I'm done. They need to make changes.
And the last thing I will say on this for now is so many people, like even like members, our brethren in the media, mocked and laughed and ridiculed when I and we floated the suggestion 3 months ago that, hey, if you're not going to make the playoffs, or if you're just going to kind of scoot into the playoffs barely, wouldn't you want to leverage this amazing asset in Carlos Correa to one of like the 2 or 3 teams that needs an infielder?
You were mocked.
Wouldn't it make sense to maybe trade him to recoup some value, get a top prospect or two? And I mean, it was literally like mocked in articles and stuff, and never forget. And of course, they did what we wanted. At the time, I said, "Oh, this is great. This is what you should do with Correa: is go trade for 3 pitchers." Right. And of course, my mistake is, and I've been burned twice on this now, not Googling name of player and injury or UCL or shoulder.
Join the club.
So there's Twitter receipts going around like, well, Mackey, you like the trade. Well, I'm sorry. I like the Malley trade because I didn't Google that he had been on the injured list 2 weeks before with a bum shoulder. Yes. So I always assume that when you trade for a player that there is no medical issue, and we can't assume that anymore with this Twins team. But the more likely, I think there's a chance he could like it here and come back or opt in, but he's gotten hot enough now. He's a 4-win player above replacement, 20-plus homers, OPS is well above league average. He's done enough statistically now in the second half of the season where it probably makes sense to opt out and go see if you can get a 6 or 7 year massive contract from somebody. And that somebody is unlikely to be the Twins with Royce Lewis coming back at some point. So you're going to wind up, the likely scenario is you're going to miss the playoffs and Carlos Correa is going to walk for basically nothing.
Yep.
But when you sound the alarm on that 3 months ago, you're a bunch of clickbait artists. It's like, no, man, this is the stuff you should be thinking about if you're a front office. And so I don't know, man. We'll see what happens, but
it's not clickbait. It's the Buzz Factory. Oh, Buzz Factory, the Buzz Factory. You know, Score North is the Buzz Factory. I will say this about Correa, and I think he's done some good things. But anyway, I get very frustrated when guys like Correa get what I consider to be conveniently hot for their own cause. It's like, dude, where were all these hits with guys in scoring position back in May and June and July? Like, I understand.
I still want him back. I want him back.
Yeah,
he's
but
a really good player.
But I'm just saying, before that, I was like, going into this month, I was like, he might have to opt in. But I think you're right now. Like, he's conveniently gotten hot enough where the stats are going to be like, oh, you are Carlos Correa again. So
yeah. So, well, all right. That autopsy of the Twins presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, been around for over 100 years, helping business owners maximize their level of success through risk management tools and resources. Federated is all about personal relationships, and they're all about making sure that your business is protected, safe, and skyrocketing up to the right as you look at a chart. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Do you guys want to do old tweets exposed, or should we save those for a later date here?
Well, so with old tweets exposed, it's a little more of an executive decision. I have combed through a clip that went out, and actually Judd kind of knows what happened because I was playing some of this in front of him by our new cubicle chairs. Now we have actually desks here at Score North and Hubbard Broadcasting, so it's actually very nice. But it's more of a funny discussion that Judd pointed out in OTAs that Mackey and I kind of mocked, and it's split into two parts. So that's my long-winded way of saying it's old tweets exposed, a little bit of a twist on it.
What if we did this? Is it Vikings related?
It is Vikings related.
What if we, for what are people saying about the Vikings, what if we brought old tweets exposed to Purple Daily today?
That works.
Okay, because I think I know where you're going with this, and I think we're going to do a little we're going to make you go to our other show for old tweets exposed Vikings related today. So, all right, that's Mackey and Judd on this Reckless Speculation Thursday. Feedback Friday tomorrow. So get your questions, comments, concerns, critiques in through the Score North app. And if Judd wants to talk about the Twins anytime between now and 2023 opening day, or whenever there's news breaking, you can find that on the Jay Zulgad Twitter account.
Yep.
Probably not as much here on the actual show. See you guys.